Does love bring you happiness, or maybe it's money? The fourth annual conference on happiness and its causes is taking place in Sydney later this week. With an audience of 2,500 delegates and speakers, the conference will look at how to improve the happiness and overall quality of life. Elizabeth Tian from the equity sales team at RBS, she'll be going to the conference, and she talked about the goals of the meeting with Carson Scott.
I think obviously, Carson, for not just myself, but for a lot of people out there, there's a lot more to happiness than just our work. Obviously, work is important. We go to work 5 days a week, but a lot of people really are trying to find that happiness also outside of work, and that's what this type of conference tries to put together. It's really inviting the top speakers from different fields, from psychology, different fields like religion, the top neuroscientists, and getting a debate and discussion going on how we can find this happiness.
Because you always come across as being the picture of happiness. Now, is this conference already preaching to the converted, as it were? I mean, or do you suspect there are genuinely people attending who haven't yet found that is, you know, a key component that they need to be hooked into?
I don't think it's really converting to just a converted. Thank you about my happiness comments. I suppose I have my happy days and my not so happy days. Most of the delegates going to this conference are really people from the medical field, a lot of psychologists, a lot of counsellor workers coming in. So that's the vast majority of people going. And of course, they're people, ordinary people like myself, coming to the conference, trying to get, I suppose, a bit of insight into how we can actually make ourselves happier. I mean, the main theme of the conference really is the belief that we can train ourselves to be happier. And a lot of studies coming out from neuroscientists, from medicine, is showing that the brain is plastic. You can train yourself. Obviously, we can't control what's outside, the economy, our job, our friends and family. Kind of control our mind and our perspective on how we see things.
So it's almost a daily, I mean, when you talk about training, it's like going off to the gym. If you skip a session, you kind of go backwards. So it's got to be part of the daily routine, right? Incorporated. Is this something you do when you wake up first thing in the morning? Is there a ABC of what to do?
Certainly, in theory, it is something that you have to do every day. I find it quite hard to do because we get distracted by everything around us. But things like meditation is one of the things that you can do to help you, I suppose, focus your mind. One of the steps is to wake up every day and think, this is an important day, it's a precious day. What am I going to do to make it a positive day for myself?
Do you sense as well, because this is not the first time they've held this conference here, but it is growing in popularity, what we were saying, about 2,500 delegates. Traditional forms of happiness, you know, the headlines, glum times in the grotto, Playboy revenue slumps, 100 jobs cut. Do you think the traditional forms, I must stress, for some people, of happiness have been cast aside now? They've fallen out of favour, and this is the new approach?
I think it is. I think it's not new in the sense that it's been around for a very long time. Some of these philosophies come from ancient traditions, but I think the West is really starting to catch up to this idea that we can train ourselves in making ourselves happier, and we really may not be able to find happiness from external sources, from, you know, falling in love or going to the Playboy mansion.
Yeah, well, exactly. You know, take your pick on that one. What about this idea of it being cross-disciplinary? Is this the idea that, you know, it's something you have to apply not just in one compartment of your life, but it should be able to bleed across all spectrums, so not just the home life, but work. But they're very different people you're trying to, you know, pass that on to. I mean, is that a challenge?
I think if we really want to find genuine happiness, it's really got to be across our whole, you know, across the whole spectrum. We obviously it'd be very difficult to be just happy at home and then go to work and be unhappy. And we're finding a lot of corporations now are really starting to investigate this. Some of the sponsors for this conference are companies out there. They're sending their human resources managers to these types of conferences to kind of, I suppose, blend that into work. Well, last year when the whole financial markets were melting down, RBS actually had a psychologist come in and, you know, we had sessions with all the staff on how to deal with change. So I think it's very important for corporations to recognise this too.
They talk of this law of attraction, so you do attract things that you are displaying yourself. Now, does that mean that you should be avoiding some people, even in the workplace, those who are putting out negative energy, or is it possible that you can even bring them on board with this?
I think it'd be obviously very hard to avoid negative people at work, because sometimes we have to deal with them. They might be my clients or my manager. So it's much easier, I suppose, to try and bring them on board. In truth, I think everyone is looking for happiness, and if this negative person can kind of, suppose, understand that they too can be happy, I'm sure they would want to come on board.
It's about, though, being in that headspace, isn't it? You have to accept where you're at and perhaps accept that deficiency in order to be open to the idea. No good if it's like, you know, banging on a locked door. You know, you've got to get that reception.
That's certainly right. I mean, if someone is very closed to it, it's obviously much harder to convert them. But I suppose if the effects start showing in me and I'm starting to be a happier person, I'm the person at work with the pot plants and the little feng shui bells, and everyone's like, oh, there's Liz there. And it kind of, I think, kind of, as you say, flows through.
Right.